On 20th December 1968, a young couple was on their first date in a car. They needed privacy, so they turned the car towards Herman Lake in California. In the car, 16-year-old girl Betty Lou Jensen and 17-year-old boy David Faraday were unaware that a stranger was following them. They had just stopped at Lake Herman when a stranger came from behind, in which the person sitting told David and Betty to get out of the car. When they refused, the person fired a shot at the rear wheel of their car to scare them. Afraid, David and Betty immediately got out of the car, on which the person shot them both. When David was shot in the head, Betty was shot in the back 5 times. After this scene, the person immediately fled from the scene. This was the heart-wrenching incident that started the search for a notorious serial killer. Yes, we are talking about Zodiac Killer. Welcome back, J.J. Thompson's videos. Zodiac Killer is one of the most terrifying serial killers of the 20th century. Between the 1960s and 70s, he had scared the whole of San Francisco with his horrific attacks. He would send letters to newspapers and police, proudly confess his murder, and even send riddles to solve them. After his first 2 murders, he remained silent for 6 months, but then reappeared with another murder case. July 4, 1969 was the Independence Day in the United States. 18-year-old Darlene Ferrin and 16-year-old Michael McGill were out in the car to pick up the fireworks. They noticed that a stranger was following them. To deceive the car, they turned into the parking lot of Blue Rock Springs Park. But the stranger who was following them also came to the parking lot behind them. First, he parked his car next to them, but a few seconds later, the car reversed and left. Seeing this, Darlene and Michael took a breath of happiness, but this happiness was only for a few moments. The stranger's car came again, and this time they blocked the road and parked behind them. A man came out of it, who had a powerful flashlight in his hand, which he hid on the face of Darlene and Michael. At first, they thought it was a police officer, but with this, the man fired bullets at both of them and immediately sat in the car and ran away. Darlene died on the spot, but Michael survived the injury. After a while, 3 children nearby called the police. Michael had seen the killer's face, with the help of which the police later made a sketch of the killer. The most surprising part of this incident was that on the same day of the murder, at 12:40 at night, the Vallejo Police Department received a call from a stranger who was calling from a phone booth, but he hung up the phone before saying anything. This was the first phone call made to the police by the Zodiac Killer. About a month later, on 1st August 1969, the Zodiac Killer wrote a letter to 3 different newspapers. In the letter, he also admitted to the murder of the girl who died at Blue Rock Springs Park on Independence Day. To prove his point, he told some details that only the police knew, such as which bullet was fired, how many bullets were fired, and which clothes the victims were wearing. Along with the letter, the Zodiac Killer also sent an encoded message, and he demanded that this cipher should be published in the newspaper the next day. Otherwise, he would commit more murders. This encoded cipher was sent to intelligence agencies for decoding, but for now, this cipher could not be cracked. The next day, after the cipher was published in the newspaper, a couple from San Francisco cracked the cipher on the same day. He wrote, in the cipher, he also wrote that he believes in afterlife and the people he is killing will become his slaves in the afterlife. The newspaper remained silent for 2 months after the written letters, but the Zodiac Killer appeared again with a new case. On September 27, 1969, a college couple was at the shore of Berryessa Lake for a picnic. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard noticed that a man was approaching them. He was wearing a black hood, which had a zodiac symbol on it. As soon as he approached, the Zodiac took out his gun and asked the couple for money and car keys. Brian had 75 cents at the time, which he gave him with the car key. In the meantime, he returned the car key to Brian and tied their hands with a rope. Then he took out his knife and attacked both of them several times. Thinking that both of them are dead, the Zodiac killer went back to the car and wrote a message on the couple's car and escaped from there. The message contained the name of the place, date, time, and the name of the weapon. When the couple found a fisherman nearby injured, they were still breathing. He was taken to the hospital, but Cecilia survived without any injuries, while Brian survived, who told the police everything about the incident in detail. Like his last murder, the Zodiac called the police at 7:40 at night and told them all the details of the murder. Here, the police had found a special pattern in the Zodiac's actions. First, he only targeted young couples. Second, his attacks were only on weekends or near holidays. Third, he either attacked in the dark at night or in the evening when there is a little light. Fourth, whoever he killed, he proudly admitted it as if he was challenging the authorities. Fifth, most murders were committed at the well-known dating points. Sixth, most murders were committed in the car. And finally, the seventh pattern was that most murders were near water. From these 7 patterns, it is obvious that the Zodiac is disappointed with love or has a special hatred for his girls, because the boys survived in 2 of the last 3 attacks. However, the police did not know that the next target of the Zodiac was going to break this pattern. Only 2 weeks after the last murder, on October 11, 1969, the Zodiac stopped a cab driver named Paul Stein at 9:30 at night and told him to go to Maple Street in Presidio Heights. When the driver reached his destination, the Zodiac first waited for the car to stop and then shot Paul Stein from a point-blank range. After that, the Zodiac got off and sat in the front passenger seat and took a piece of Paul's shirt with him. During this murder, 2 children were watching this scene from the 2nd floor of the building nearby. They immediately informed the police, but they made a mistake that they showed the Zodiac's appearance in black. In the same area, a police car was patrolling. They immediately headed for Maple Street and collided with the Zodiac on the way, which was walking in the middle of a light fog. Now, because the police were looking for a man in black, they did not have much doubt about the Zodiac because it was not black. The police stopped the Zodiac and asked if he had seen anything strange in this area. Later, the Zodiac said that a man was seen waving a gun in the next lane. Therefore, the police rushed in the same direction. However, if the police officers had come down to see the Zodiac, they would have seen bloodstains on his jacket. The Zodiac had once again managed to escape the police's grasp, but the police found fingerprints of the Zodiac on Paul Stein's car. A few days later, the Zodiac wrote letters to the newspapers again and told the whole story of Paul Stein's murder. And for proof, he also sent a piece of Paul Stein's shirt. This time, he threatened to attack the school bus. This threat caused a wave of fear in the entire area, and the police began to follow all the school buses for the next few weeks. But there was never any attack on the school bus. The children who had seen the Zodiac were helped to make a new, fresh sketch of the Zodiac and spread it among all the taxi drivers. But this time, the Zodiac took to the field in a new way. Exactly 10 days after killing the taxi driver, on October 22, 1969, the Zodiac called the Oakland Police Department and said that Melvin Belly, who was a well-known lawyer at the time, wanted to talk to him on a TV show. It was a talk show on Channel 7 that started the day before. After waiting a while, the Zodiac called, but cut the phone. The next time he called, the call went on for a long time. In this call, the Zodiac told his name, Sam. During the entire show, he called 35 times, of which only 12 were on air. During the calls, the lawyer asked some questions, to which Sam kept answering back and forth. Later it was found that this Zodiac had not called, because the people who had heard the real voice of the Zodiac all said that this is not the voice of the Zodiac. Investigations found that this call was made by a mental patient in Napa State Hospital. A few weeks after the TV show drama, the newspapers received 2 more letters from the Zodiac. There was an encoded cipher between these letters, which they wanted to publish again in the newspaper. The first cipher, which was cracked in one day, was very difficult this time, which could not be decoded for the next 50 years. A few years ago, in 2020, 3 code breakers decoded this cipher with the help of computer software. In this cipher, the Zodiac did not tell anything about himself, nor did he give any other important clues. In fact, he did say that I was not the caller who called in the TV talk show. While with the cipher, the letter he had written in the name of the newspaper editor, the police finally got a clue. He was threatening the police this time that he has made a bomb, which is lying in his basement. In this letter, written on many pages, this was the only useful thing. If he was really telling the truth, then it meant that the Zodiac does not live in an apartment, but lives in a house where there can be a basement. And at that time, basements were not so common in the Bay Area. That is, the Zodiac does not live in the Bay Area. By telling about the basement in his house, perhaps the Zodiac had made a mistake. 5 months after these letters, on March 22, 1970, the Zodiac tried to kidnap a woman named Kathleen Johns on Highway 132, but fortunately she ran away. When the police showed Kathleen a sketch of the Zodiac, they recognized her immediately. For the next 4 years, the Zodiac kept sending many letters and ciphers. In some, he would tell the details of the murders, and in some, he would write reviews of the movies. In one letter, he also told the location of the bomb, but the police did not find any bomb at that location, nor was there any explosion. His last letter was received on January 30th, 1974, in which he had written the score of his murder something like this: Me 37, SFPD 0. That is, I have committed 37 murders, while the San Francisco Police Department's score is 0. But the police said that the Zodiac is telling more numbers in exaggeration, while the number of murders committed in his way is only 5. Police and other law enforcement agencies, such as the CIA, after doing deep research on the behavior of the Zodiac and the way it was killed, came to the conclusion that the Zodiac is not an ordinary human being, but has knowledge of the military grade. The footprints found in the crime scene are also the footprints of the shoes that are usually found at a military store. In addition, he may have gained experience in cryptology and ciphers while he was in the military. Now, because the Zodiac killer had terrorized the whole of America, and he was also getting special attention, and in the meantime, many people claimed to be a Zodiac to get attention, which made it even more difficult for the police to find the real Zodiac. Initially, the police suspected a man named Arthur Lee Allen. A lot of evidence was going against Arthur. One was that he had a military background, the other was that he had a watch with the Zodiac written on it, and the logo was also made. But neither did Arthur's handwriting nor his fingerprints match the Zodiac. After being in police custody for many years, he died in 1992. The second suspect of the police was a man named Richard Gaikowski, because his face resembled the Zodiac, but apart from that, his handwriting and fingerprints did not match the Zodiac. Similarly, the police arrested a total of 50 people on suspicion, but none of them was a criminal whose entire profile matched the Zodiac. Although this case gained more fame than the limit, the real identity of the Zodiac killer is still a mystery in the world of crime. Who was the Zodiac? Why did he murder so many people? And what was his real purpose other than the life-after-death story? I hope you will like and share this video of the InfoCap. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next great video.